Today, I will be talking about what is affecting the manatee population in Florida. First off, this is a Bloom's taxonomy pyramid for the manatee. The West Indian manatee, which are the ones that live in Florida, can also be called Trichicus manatus laterostris, which is a subspecies of just Trichicus manatus. The most common place to find manatees is in Crystal River, which is in Kings Bay. Kings Bay consists of maze-like canals and islands that serve as a refuge for many different species. Today, we will focus on the Florida manatee. Manatees are often found in shallow, slow-moving rivers, estuaries, saltwater bays, canals, and coastal areas, especially where there are lots of beds of seagrass. The manatees return to the Crystal River each winter to enjoy the warm temperatures of the natural springs. Manatees are especially susceptible to the cold, so springs which are 72 degrees Fahrenheit year-round are required for their survival. Manatees are unable to survive long periods of time in water that is below 68 degrees Fahrenheit. During the summer months, manatees often can be found as far as Texas or Massachusetts, but they are more commonly seen in places like Georgia, Alabama, and South Carolina. Sometimes they will travel as far as coastal ways around South America. Manatees can grow up to 10 feet in length and can weigh over 1,000 pounds. Although many people think that manatees are related to dolphins and walruses due to their uncanny resemblance, manatees are actually closely related to elephants. Like elephants, manatees have lips that have the ability to grasp objects, rough skin, and nails on their flippers, whereas elephants have nails on their legs. The northern extent of the Florida manatee was believed to be South Florida. However, due to their loss of habitat in South Florida, due to the expansion of human population and their construction of power plants and other industrial sites that have caused manatees to expand their area of living near the United States in the winter. Now they live in areas that were previously unsuitable towards them. The manatees, like the areas that manatees live in, have now moved along the Gulf of Texas when before they were mainly just found around Florida. Since manatees are mammals, they often come up for air in the cloudy waters of the main canals, spread throughout Kings Bay. Another popular place to go is the Three Sisters Reserve, which is sanctioned off as a refuge for manatees to sleep. Since this is a refuge, you have to be respectful of them and keep a safe distance away. The more popular place for tourists to go is King Spring, where you're allowed to swim right next to them and pet them. This is where the diver in the video currently is. Manatees are very docile, friendly creatures who are very active in the morning. This is why the diver is swimming with them at 9:38 a.m. They are able to recognize and accept strangers. For example, they will readily let humans give them belly rubs. When actively swimming, a manatee can stay submerged for roughly 4 minutes before coming back to the surface for more air. But when sleeping, they can stay underwater for a good 20 minutes. Manatees are very social animals and heavily rely on touch and sound for communication. This is especially true between a manatee and her calf. In short bursts, manatees can swim up to 20 miles per hour. but usually move at the slow pace of 3 to 5 miles per hour. Manatees were once almost hunted to extinction. Many conservation efforts were enlisted to help protect the calm and welcoming creatures, which I'll talk about later on. Manatees live for as long as 60 years. The amount found in Florida has been steadily increasing since the 1970s, which is when they made it on the endangered species list. Currently, the manatees are not on the list and were instead moved to the threatened species list. They are people that are trying to halt the safety measures enlisted for the manatees, since their population is not diminishing and is slightly stable now. However, many other people are fighting back on this opinion, saying that we need to have the measures in place in order to keep the population from falling back to where it was before. Another reason it took so long for manatee populations to bounce back is that they have very slow reproductive rates. Females can only produce a calf every 2 to 3 years, with twins being only a 2% chance, which is incredibly low. Females can only reproduce up until their 30s, which is only half of their lifespan. Humans are the manatee's biggest predator. Humans have been hunting manatees for food, and in some regions, it is noted that manatees are still at risk for poaching and subsistence hunting. Still occurs in the southern hemisphere. In Florida, however, it was noted that pre-Columbian societies mostly hunted them. After the Spanish occupation in Florida, the rise in human population led to the population numbers of manatees to diminish. In 1893, Florida passed a legislation to make the killing of manatees illegal. Unfortunately, watercraft collision accounts for almost 30% of manatee deaths, and it has been noted that almost every manatee has at least one scar on its back due to a collision. These scars are only created by small boats. Big boats can even cut the manatees in half if they are moving at a fast enough speed. Since manatees stay close to the surface and aren't visible to people driving boats, boats will often sail on top of them, injuring them greatly. Other causes of human-related manatee mortality include being crushed or drowned in canal locks and flood control structures, the ingestion of fish hooks, litter, or monofilament line, and the entanglement in crab trap lines. Ultimately, the loss of habitat is the most serious threat facing manatees in the United States today. Currently, there are acts in place for the safety of the manatee. The Marine Mammal Protection Act of 1972 and the Endangered Species Act of 1973, and these make it illegal to harass, hunt, capture, or kill any marine mammal. So this includes manatees as well. Florida manatees are also protected by the Florida Manatee Sanctuary Act of 1978. Violations of these federal or state laws can be met with civil or criminal convictions associated with monetary fines or imprisonment. Recently, there has been an outbreak of algae that has made the water a dark brown. This algae is killing off the seagrass, which the manatees depend on for their food source, and without the seagrass, the manatees are forced to eat the red algae, which is hard for them to digest. Between 2012 and 2015, more than 150 manatees were killed by this recent infestation, and all of these manatees were found with large amounts of seaweed in their stomach, which had not been digested yet. Thank you for listening to my presentation.